In 2003, I finally moved to the United States. My parents passed away a few years ago, which were my last relatives that lived in Peru. For the first time in my life, I feel safe enough to speak about this. I still don't know exactly what I walked into that day. The stories of the Bruja from my village don't exactly match up with real history. But what I am certain of is that cave was used for some malevolent form of witchcraft. Some kind of ritual site, if I had to guess. Those tiny dolls with spikes in their heads, those bones that littered that cave, and that evil voice coming out of that little girl's mouth have stayed with me ever since. I'm fairly new to this channel, so if anyone listening has their own theories about my experience, I would love to hear them. This happened a few years back, outside of my workshop in Phoenix. I'm the guy you call when something with an engine breaks down. I've always been good at fixing cars, lawnmowers, and even off-road vehicles. So when my buddy calls me up and asks me to help him fix up this old dune buggy he bought off Facebook Marketplace, I said sure. He would have to pay, but sure. I knew a thing or two about dune buggies, and my friend had bought a piece of shit. But since I'm such a nice guy, I spent the next couple of weekends welding, swapping out parts, and getting it running again. The day finally came for me to test out my work. I told myself I would just do a short loop, nothing crazy, stay within a mile or two of the workshop, so I could walk back if anything went wrong. Of course, things went wrong. The buggy left me stranded maybe a mile out into the desert. Engine just took a dump, no warning. I tried everything I knew, but it wasn't starting. No cell service out this way either. So I had no choice but to start walking back toward the workshop, kicking up dust with every step. The heat was brutal that day. The kind that makes the air sting your mouth until it feels like sandpaper. I kept thinking how stupid it was to come out this far, but I was sure I had the engine working fine. I figured I'd be back at the shop in 20 minutes tops, and I'll have to come back with my truck. About 10 minutes into the walk, I noticed something odd in the sky. A single dark cloud, very small at first. I can't explain how jarring that is to see, just hanging there in the sky. Then it started growing, like fast, unnaturally fast. In less than a minute, it had spread out and swallowed the whole sky above me, turning everything gray and heavy. The wind picked up hard, and all of a sudden, the desert was getting pelted by rain, loud drops hammering the sand. Thunder cracked so loud, I actually covered my ears and fell to one knee. I started running, not because I was scared, but because for one of only a handful of times in my life, I didn't want to get drenched. As I looked up toward a sandstone peak off in the distance, I saw something. A figure standing at the very top, perfectly still. Over the howling wind, I could hear something else. A low, rhythmic chanting. It didn't sound like any language I had ever heard. It rose and fell with the wind, almost like it was calling to the storm. Lightning started striking the ground around me, way too close for comfort. I spotted the old roof of a decommissioned gas station up ahead and sprinted for it, ducking under the overhang, just as another bolt lit up the sky. I stood by one of the gas pumps, breathing hard, watching the rain come down in sheets. The chanting seemed to grow louder now, even though I was under cover. I kept scanning the ridge, but the figure had vanished into the downpour. I waited there, soaked, breathing hard. The storm was violent, but it only lasted for a few more minutes. Then, just like that, the clouds started breaking apart, and the rain stopped, and the thunder faded. The sky cleared like nothing had happened. I stepped back into the sand and immediately noticed something was not right. I was still wet, but the ground was bone dry. The sand looked exactly like it had before the storm broke out. There were no puddles, no damp patches, nothing. I pulled out my phone and checked the weather forecast. Clear skies, 0 chance of rain. The same forecast it had been all day. I stood there for the longest time, heart still pounding, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. The figure on the peak, the chanting, the way the single cloud had exploded across the sky and then vanished without leaving a single drop on the ground. It felt like something deliberate. I eventually made it back and grabbed my truck and towed the dune buggy back to the workshop. It was a clogged filter if you were curious. Fixed the engine the next day, and that was that. I still think about that phantom storm every now and again. Rain clouds don't just swallow the entire sky in seconds and then vanish without leaving a trace. And then there was that chanting. That figure standing up on the sandstone, almost like it was calling the storm down on purpose. I don't know what it's all about, but something tells me that this might be witchcraft related. Definitely not something I fuck with. Ever since, I make sure not to go too far out when I'm test driving something.